I need to get you
thank you, Get Vocal.
A penis with a suction cup. Although you'd probably get a hickey right in the middle of your forehead, because that would be
Every
funny.
time you call me a dickhead?
Yes. Anyway, hi! Welcome to American Sex Live. I'm Sunny Megatron. This is my dickhead husband.
Meh.
Ken
Weinberg.
Yeah, Ken Weinberg. We're sexuality educators, pleasure advocates, and kinky perverts too. Yay! Thank you, Get Vocal. You have a picture of your friend with a penisacorn? I like that. I like the penisacorn. What? Or a corn penis.
Did you see the awesome new tiara that Melina got?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's very with like snakes and eyeballs or something.
No, it was a Cthulhu crown.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, it was like Cthulhu with tentacles and an eyeball.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So
she's so awesome.
Today we are talking about non-monogamy, aka polyamory. But before we get to that, we've got our ball washing, aka housekeeping, to do. So, yeah, welcome to American Sex. Ha. Normally, you may associate the name American Sex or associate us with the podcast that drops every Monday on all the podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify and whatnot. This Wednesday night live stream is different content where we can show you things. Yes, like our penis heads, all sorts of things, because we can. Every Wednesday night here on Get Vocal. If you're watching on Get Vocal, you'll see in the chat, oh, share this with your friends on Twitter, share this with your friends on Facebook. Go ahead and do that. If you have friends that are like, oh, they're talking about opening their relationship, to come on over. If you're like, I don't see the chat, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, you're probably watching on one of our simulcast stations, which is Periscope, Facebook Live, or YouTube Live. And that's perfectly cool. We're happy to have you here. However, if you would like to ask questions in the chat where we can actually see it, or pop on camera and talk with us, the only place you can do that is if you're actually on the Get Vocal platform. Those are the only comments that we can see right now. So hop on over to wherever you're watching. There should be a link just above where you are. Click on that link, come on over to Get Vocal so you're on platform with us, or go to the website bit.ly, bit.ly/SunnyGetVocal, SUNNYGETVOKL. I was amazed last week on Periscope alone. Well, actually, Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube. You know how many people we had watching with us? 5,000 people. Our subject yesterday or last week was all about the D's. It was all dick stuff. And 5,000 people were watching live with us on all these other platforms. So if you're here on Get Vocal and you're like, oh, there's only a handful of people. Oh, no. There's a lot of people. We just can't communicate with them. So get on over here, Periscope, folks. We are part of a whole Wednesday night lineup here on Get Vocal, which is the Connection Zone, shows about love, sex, and relationships. And each weekday, there's different stuff. And I actually wrote it down because there's like new things. So tomorrow is True Crime Thursday. Friday is Fandom. Hello, Jennifer. Would you mind muting while we do our housekeeping? So Wednesday, let's see, Fandom Friday, Sunday is Soul Sunday, Tuesday is Tickle Me Tuesday, also Tasty Tuesday. Like there's something every week, so it's kind of awesome. Come on over to Get Vocal. I also want to remind folks, if you pop on camera with us, you will be simulcast on Periscope, Facebook, yada, 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 potentially to 5,000 people. Sometimes we also use this on our podcast feed. Sometimes we use the feed from our live streams on that. So that's great. What else? What else? Is that it for housekeeping? I think so. I always feel like I forget something. Whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so today's subject is ethical non-monogamy, polyamory, open relationships, whatever you call it, that's what we're talking about. And we're going to talk about it from the perspective of Ken and my personal experience. We're married and we have an open marriage. And also with some like polyamory 101 thrown in with different terms and whatnot. I'm hoping that this can be Waffles, be quiet.
No.
Shh. I'm hoping that this can be a good conversation. So jump in with your experiences and questions. And also, he totally lost my train of thought. Also, what? I don't know. I don't even know. So yeah. So we're ready to jump in?
Let's jump in.
Okay. So let's start with like a little bit of setup, like Polyamory 101, because some of you may be watching and you might be like, oh yeah, I've been in an open relationship for years.
Can I talk a little bit about our relationship before we do that? About how you and I got set up?
Okay. My notes are in different order, but yes. Okay, that's fine. Whatever.
All right. So I can completely throw Sunny off. I think that I'm going to derail this by talking about how we set up our relationship. For years, we had both been in relationships with conflicting structure styles, I want to say. And when we got together,
what do you mean just conflicting structure styles?
That maybe we wanted to be non-monogamous when we didn't know how, we didn't express it correctly, that we had partners that had a different end game than what you and I wanted. And one of the things that just happened is Sunny and I just had our wedding anniversary. So first of all, I love you.
I love you too.
And one of the reasons why our relationship is so successful is because from the get-go, we set boundaries as to what we both wanted with non-monogamy specifically. Now, that didn't mean that we had to go out and try and be sexy with everybody that we absolutely could. That wasn't what the end game there was. It was just brutal honesty, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little uncomfortable at first, as it is when you're first exploring things. Like you've got to, tear away a little bit at the icky parts and figure out what's going on. But I think that we have a system that works very, very well. And a lot of people take a look at our relationship style because we sort of are, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but we are emotionally monogamous, I want to say, sort of, but not exactly.
Yeah.
What would you call our relationship style?
I don't know.
We used to say it was that, but it's not really that anymore.
No, I don't know. I mean,
just open relationship.
I'm not a fan of labels. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan of the term polyamory, not because I don't like the word. It's because
it combines Greek and Latin in an awful way. No. Yes.
It's because I'm not really hip on the community and what that word means. Like the preconceived stereotype of the poly community is not my thing. So I don't like to use polyamorous because it just...
Not that there's anything wrong if you're with that community. It's just something we didn't identify with.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, and I don't know, maybe I'm being cynical. A lot of people, when they look into getting into the polyamorous community, have the false notion that it's this utopia, that it's a bunch of people who are so emotionally literate and they communicate and everything's great. And polyamorous people are just toxic motherfuckers as monogamous people can be. People are people. Yeah, people are people. And so I sort of reject that. And there's a lot of kind of holier than thou, one true way, I don't subscribe to that. Also, the polyamorous community is very white. And I am not white. I mean, I'm half white, but half not white. So that kind of granola crunchy whiteness put me off.
Why? Specifically, was there microaggressions?
Yeah,
Talk a little bit about why that was uncomfortable, other than there wasn't people that looked like you.
Okay, I don't want to sound bitchy, but I'll probably sound bitchy.
It's fine.
It was very oh, look, we're so oppressed. Oh, because we're polyamorous. And it was a bunch of middle-class white people. And it's really? Yeah. A lot of self-centeredness, a lot of me, without looking at the bigger community and how we're all integrated together, without looking at what experiences and what backgrounds and what lifestyles maybe other people in your community or maybe even in your poly relationships come from. So I personally don't dig that vibe. You know, I didn't find it very inclusive and welcoming for me. And I found it a little hypocritical because it's a community that's like, we're so inclusive and welcoming and oppressed. And to me, I'm just like, oh, honey, no. That's me.
You know what's
that's
interesting, though, is that there is regional differences in different communities. Like when you take a look at the swinger community in Chicago versus the swinger community here in Las Vegas versus
or the swinger community in Atlanta.
You're talking vastly different experiences there. So and it's the same thing with the polyamorous community. Well, we come from Chicago. We have a very specific experience there with like two different polyamorous communities, because I want to say that there was like, or rather two swinger communities, because there was a stronger bend of a black swinger community in Chicago, which was more on the south side, and then when you got to the north side, it was a little bit more of a white thing, especially when you went out to like the suburbs and that sort of thing. Did you find the same thing?
Yeah.
And where you go to Atlanta, much better.
Yeah.
And why is it much better, do you think?
It's much more diverse, much more integrated. Again, I just saw the Atlanta community from afar. Like, it's not like I was entrenched in the community. I went to a couple of events when I was in town, kind of thing. So my experience definitely is not like, oh, I know the ins and outs of that community. But it's just completely different. Completely
different diversity experiences here and in Atlanta. Both.
So I think my personal experience not only has to do with like the region I'm in, it was probably the particular people that were in my smaller sub community of the bigger Chicago community just kind of put me off personally. That's not to say every polyamorous community or non-monogamous community or whatever you want to call it is like that. It was just my personal experience.
Yeah, when we lived in Toronto, when we were filming the show, it was a very different experience there with both the swinger and the polyamorous community. And it's incredible how different it is, just like a border makes. You know, when we were, I mean, not that far away from Toronto physically, but like, you know, the way that it was handled racially, diversity, representation, you know, just so much more acceptance of LGBTQ stuff. Now, it's not like Toronto's a heaven. They definitely got their problems with the Fords running, you know, the
and there is still racism.
And there's definitely racism there.
Yeah.
But it's a different kind of racism.
Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily better. I don't even know if it's just it's different.
It is a difference.
Oh, Jennifer, I was going to say, I muted while we were doing our stuff. Do you have anything you want to jump in with, or are you just kind of hanging?
Just kind of hanging. A friend of mine had recommended this podcast, and I have some history with both. I started out as a swinger, and I think that's kind of transformed to more kind of poly swinging. So I'm kind of in this really kind of cool little Venn diagram of swinging and poly and open marriage. So I just thought I'd come and see what you guys were talking about.
Cool.
Well, that's awesome. Cool. What part of the nation are you from, Jennifer?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Awesome.
Oh, awesome. Okay. We've got a lot of great friends. Like we have like one of my poly partners is there.
Great. Yes. So I think St. Louis has a great community.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. Hi, Gypsy.
How are ya?
Hi.
Hey. Do you have something you want to add, or are you just kind of hanging right now?
Well, I'm hanging, but I did want to agree with the sentiment that it is definitely a regional thing. I'm up in New England, where generally home base is New Hampshire.
Okay.
Diversity is a big challenge. I actually ran pre-COVID. Ran swing and fetish.
In the before time?
Yeah, the BC time. I ran swing and fetish events for the community and I feel quite successful for New Hampshire area. But I have discovered recently, and I've always promoted being, more being inclusive, being accepting, LGBTQ friendly. I myself am part of that community as well. Major Venn diagram happening there.
Yeah.
And but because of my location, I realized that even though I'm all encompassing and accepting, I'm still not acknowledging diversity. So it'd be interesting. I would definitely be interested. And I'm also into van life, so I do travel other places as well. So
yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to start branching out into the community elsewhere and discover what you're talking about. Because
that's such an amazing opportunity, because and I wanted to talk a minute to like people that are in communities where you might not have a lot of BIPOC folk there. Like you might not have great representation in your area. That's not the fault of the place where you live. Like you just may not have that experience. So when you get out and you explore and you take a look at like different forms of diversity in different parts of the the United States, Canada, wherever you're going to be traveling to, I think you'll really be impressed at the regional differences. Like when you in fact, I would challenge you to go to 3 places in particular. Go to some events in Atlanta, go to some events in San Francisco, go to some events in, what would you see, like
I don't know,
maybe Chicago.
Yeah.
And
well,
just take a look.
Chicago's one of my first stops, actually. I have a family out in Michigan, and I've also done a couple of kink events out in Chicago.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I would
what part of Michigan? That's where I'm from originally.
What's that?
What part of Michigan?
My son is out in Muskegon.
Oh yeah, I'm from near there. I'm from Grand Rapids originally.
Yeah.
It's a really nice area. That's my goal in the next month or 2.
Yeah.
It's beautiful there this time of year.
I would highly recommend, either for you, if you haven't heard of it, or anyone listening along who's like, yeah, I want my community to be more inclusive. Read Love's Not Colorblind by Kevin Patterson.
Great book.
It's a really good book, as is his blog Poly Role Models. So highly recommend it if you haven't heard of either of those.
Becca.
Yeah. So let's see. Poly Light. Yes. I'm just looking at the comments here. Yeah. So I don't know. We've jumped into community. It's interesting to me. I think, at least the way I look at polyamory, which I tend to call it ethical non-monogamy, because I'm just like, And I think I'm going to back up just a little bit for anybody watching who isn't as well versed in these communities, and just give you like a quick 101 primer. We have an open marriage, open relationship, polyamorous, ethically non-monogamous, whatever the hell you want to call us. However, that does not mean that people who are monogamous are less than, not as evolved. That is not true. Like, there are relationship styles for everyone. And if monogamous is your jam, that's awesome. More power to you. If being polyamorous or an open relationship is your jam, more power to you. One is not better than the other. And, when you hear a lot of polyamorous people talking, you will hear, sometimes there will be outright monogamy bashing, which I don't endorse. I don't agree with. However, you will also hear people talk about some of the like toxic monogamous ideals. And those are just toxic notions that we have about relationships. They can pop up in monogamous relationships. They can also pop up in polyamorous relationships. We live in a patriarchal society that tells you very certain specific toxic, fucked up messages about how relationships should be. And we've all bought into those. And all of those things, to some extent or another, many of us a huge extent, fuck us up. So, you know, some of those things when we talk about, when you hear the toxic monogamous ideals, again, it doesn't mean only monogamous people believe this. It's that we've grown up in a society where we value monogamy. So some of those things are like that jealousy is an indicator of love. That's actually pretty toxic and can fuck things up. That intense love can overcome any issues or adversity you have in your relationship. That you as a partner need to meet your spouse's or your partner's every single need. And if you can't do that, there's something wrong with you. That commitment means you are exclusive with someone. If you're not exclusive with someone, there's no way you can be serious or committed to the relationship. Again, all of these are like those the toxic myths that aren't really true. Sit down. Okay.
No,
you're shaking my arm. Can't read.
Shaking my ass.
That the idea of being of value to your partner should always make up a large chunk of how you value yourself. Like things like this are things that society has told us that we've internalized. And so, A, keep that in mind. B, when we're talking about polyamory or ethical non-monogamy, notice I put ethical in there. We're as ethical as, you know, I mean, we all got to work on being ethical, right? None of us is perfect. But non-monogamy isn't I'm cheating on my partner and that's okay. When we're talking ethical non-monogamy or polyamory, it means that we are engaging, you know, sexually, emotionally, whatever it is, with other partners with the full knowledge and consent of our other partner. So everybody is in the loop, everybody involved in this, you know, bigger circle or web of relationships is on the up and up. They know what's up with their other partners.
You know what I was just thinking about?
What?
That dovetails with this?
What?
How much more breakups and cheating hurted when I was monogamous compared to when I was not monogamous. And I think that a lot of that stems from a couple of things, that when you're putting all of your eggs in one basket, and there's, again, nothing wrong with monogamous relationships, but then you're feeling all of the hurt in one direction as well.
Right.
Like, and it's a lot of the stuff that I think we're hearing about non-monogamy, and like, have you noticed that it's becoming, we're getting a voice now, and it's
also trendy.
It is.
Too.
It is trending
like
a little bit. And
a little kind of annoying me.
But you know what though? But it's a lot of folks like us. You know, like there's a lot of people that just weren't able to come out to older parents that were in their 60s or 70s about being non-monogamous, and I think like a little bit more of that is happening now, where it's becoming a little bit more socially acceptable.
Well, I
Do you think?
I have always in my mind, even as a child, when I would think about, you know, my future relationships as an adult, included some form of non-monogamy, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know swingers existed. I don't consider myself a swinger. And, you know, for those who aren't entrenched in these communities, the swinging community and the polyamorous community tend to be very different. I tend to say if you sit them at the high school lunch table together, they're going to be like, me.
But they're still within the Venn diagram,
right?
You know, like there's going to like Gypsy was talking about. There's going to be a little bit of overlap between the two.
Exactly. So,
or Jennifer. I'm sorry, it was Jennifer.
Yeah, the stereotypes of swingers, and again, this is the stereotype, is, you know, they're just in it, like the polyamorous people say about swingers. You're just in it for the sex. You just like to fuck. There's no emotion. You don't even know the name of the person you're fucking. You just like to go out to clubs and fuck. And then the swingers, what they say across the lunch table about the polyamorous people is like, you're so emotional and you're always processing your feelings and talking. Can't you just have fun? So that's kind of the stereotypes, how they point fingers at each other. But in my mind, as a younger person, I had some form of non-monogamy. To me, just seemed normal. but I never saw that represented in society. I didn't know what a swinger was. I didn't know what polyamory was. So when I grew up and I started dating, I automatically got on that relationship escalator, which is like, okay, we've dated. Now we're going to be exclusive. Now we're going to get engaged. Going somewhere, there always had to be like another step to our relationship. And I thought that was the only way to be. And for me, I found in monogamous relationships, as someone who is a woman who at the time dated men, cis men, that being monogamous, especially now, this is in the 80s when things were a lot more misogynistic, and it opened the door for me as a woman to be controlled by my male partner. There were all of the, those toxic ideals that I read off. There were all these expectations that just didn't sit right with me. And I always hoped that I could have an open relationship. I didn't really know that they existed. I mean, I heard about swingers, and I was like, these 70s people that would have parties and fuck, and they had shag carpets. Like, that's the only thing I knew about swingers.
I thought it was all nudists and swingers, and I didn't know that there was anything else.
It wasn't my vibe. It was like 70s dudes with like the wide collar shirts and the chains and the hairy chest, like, hey baby. That's what I thought swingers were.
Keep in mind that like we get a lot of our information back in the 1970s and 80s from magazines, because we did not have an internet at that point where there was cross-cultural pollination going on all across the world. I was a pervert. I did pervert things, but I did it by magazines and like in my small community, the few people that I might have known there.
I remember in one of my adult relationships, this was in the 90s, like just when I started to use the internet. Like, we had a computer, but I hadn't found the sex part of the internet yet. And I had an Angel Fire homepage. That was it. And I had thought enough about non-monogamy to mention to my partner, like, why don't we try doing this? Why don't we, in my mind, it was like,
did you really?
Yeah. Oh, he freaked out. I was like, why don't we be together, but not be together, and also see each other people, but also have a relationship? And it was like, oh, is this like swinging? No, it's not really like swinging. Like, I don't know what it is, but why don't we try? Freaked out. Like, this means you don't love me. How are you sick? How could you think that? Why would you think I would even entertain that thought? Like, it was like, whoa, I shouldn't have opened my mouth. Like,
I have a question. Would you have helped him find a partner?
Totally. Well, I knew he was cheating on me.
Oh.
See, and in my mind, I was just like,
no bueno.
She seems really nice. Like, it's a shame. And in my mind, I was kind of like, it's a shame that all this sneaking around lying stuff has to happen. Like, if it were all out in the open, I wouldn't really be so upset. I was upset that I was being lied to. I wasn't upset that he was fucking somebody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And I don't know if at the time I could have quite put that all together in words. Like, now looking back, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what but it was just like, I had no template. I had no role models. I was kind of making this up as I went. I opened my mouth. It was a huge disaster. And that was it. So when I met Ken, I had learned polyamory was a thing. I'd learned the difference between swingers and poly and open. And we started our relationship open because I had always wanted to have an open relationship, because I ended up in long-term relationships with men that were very controlling, that used jealousy as an indicator of how much they loved me. And I was like, even though I didn't have, notes from a non-monogamy book to be like, this isn't cool, I knew deep down, like, something about this is not right. Like, I don't like this. I don't want to live my life like this. So,
I mean, but you know what? We have an amazing baptism by fire on alternative sexual communities that like nobody will ever have again, because like information is so open. There's books about all of this stuff.
Yeah,
it's fairly well known.
And now teenagers starting to date already know like
about consent.
Polyamory is an option.
Yeah,
where I was just like, I have these feelings and weird ideas, and I don't know where they came from, but I think I'm the only one in the world. So yeah, I would love to be dating now as a teenager. Oh yeah, years ago, my open relationship of almost 13 years. Wait, a year ago last Friday, my open relationship of almost 13 years ended and learned how much he was cheating on me for several years. That's fucked up. That is fucked up.
I'm so sorry, Rachel. That really sucks. And that sin it just feels like it's a different kind of pain, but it's double the weight, I think, because in an open relationship, you have every opportunity just to say, hey, this is my partner. We're going to do thing X, Y, or Z.
But like you can still cheat if you're in an open relationship. And like definition time. I use open relationship interchangeably with polyamory. There isn't really one set definition. Like if you're hearing people throwing around these different terms, and if you're like, they're saying open relationship, so they must mean X, Y, Z. Don't assume that. Like ask, well, what is an open relationship to you? Like what's your definition of that? Some people think an open relationship is don't ask, don't tell. Like, oh, if you go on business trips out of town, you can go fuck somebody and that's fine. You have a hall pass, but I don't want to know about it.
Tell them what a hall pass is.
A hall pass is you can go fuck somebody when you're out of town on vacation or whatever.
It's permission.
Right. And that to me is not what, to me, open relationship and polyamory are synonymous. I don't really prescribe to don't ask, don't tell because I'm into ethical non-monogamy, which means I'm going to tell you. There are some people that want to hear, like I like to hear. If you go on a date, I'm like, tell me everything. Okay, then this happened, then what happened? Like how I would be maybe talking to a girlfriend and be like, tell me everything about your day. You know, that's what I want to know for Ken. There are other people that are like, I don't want to know. And then I challenge those people who are like, I don't want to know. Why don't you want to know? Do you not want to know because you think you're going to get jealous and you're trying to control your jealousy? If that's the case, maybe you got some shit you got to work at. Like nobody said being in an open relationship, polyamorous or whatever the fuck you want to call it, was easy, because it is fucking not. I highly recommend that people who think about getting into open relationships or opening their existing relationships, try to find a alt relationship friendly therapist or counselor or even relationship coach to work out some of these things with, because they're not easy. Like you know, a lot of people think, especially, you know, I see so many people who are like, I am going to open our, like, we're going to open our relationship because things aren't going well. Kind of like when people are like, their relationship isn't great, so let's have a baby. That'll fix everything. No, it's the same thing. They're like, let's open our relationship. And it's like, you guys are on like fucked up, shaky ground as it is. Opening your relationship is not going to make it better. It may give you like this giddy, like new relationship energy feeling for a while and be a Band-Aid to cover up all the bullshit that's going on. But eventually that stuff is still going to come to the surface, and it's going to come to the surface 10 times worse than it would have if you just would have dealt with it in the first place. So,
and there's a lot of times in my experience, and again, this isn't a blanket statement, but a lot of the people that use polyamory, swinging, BDSM as a Band-Aid to fix a relationship, it's oftentimes an unequal relationship where one partner maybe the entire time was polyamorous, they were into BDSM, they were into open relationships, and the other partner was not. And that's not a fix for two people when they're both in separate paths.
Yeah, and
sometimes it does work though. Like I don't want to say it never works.
That's one of the things I want to talk about. It's like how to deal with polyamorous relationships if you're kind of on a different page than your partner. So like, I think that in theory, there can be a couple where, let's say one's more like polyamorous. I date a lot. I have a lot of partners. I'm real active. You know, I have an active social, relationship, social life. And maybe another partner that's like, but I mean, I think to an extent we're kind of like that. Like you are much more like, oh, I'm dating. Oh, I got a new partner. And I'm just like, I don't like people. Like every once in a while, like
But I'm happy when you do go out and like
I just don't
you have good sex and
I just don't feel the need to have a very active social life. I think it might be because like
psychic foreshadowing.
No, but it's like I'm a mom. I got a bunch of other shit going on. Like I have to deal with other people's emotions and give emotional labor to so many other people that I don't want more people to be in a relationship with that it's like, oh God, now I got to deal with your shit. I mean, and not like, not like dealing with, you know, somebody that I care about is shit, but it's just like, I only have so much bandwidth to deal with things. And I like what are those partners that are comets? Like they come around every so often. And when they do, like you have, you know, this great time and your star shines bright or whatever metaphor, and then they go away and maybe you don't talk to them for a year. Like
or 5.
That's my kind of partner that when we do get together, we can have the emotional connection. And it's not even really necessarily all about sex. It's just like when you crush on somebody or you know, you like them for a multitude of reasons. And I can have that with somebody for a night, a weekend, whenever they're in town, whenever we happen to be in the same place at the same time. And then I don't see them for a year and I'm totally cool with that. Like we don't have to talk all the time. We don't have to message all this. I don't take that shit. So yeah, I mean, that's just, okay. So how does that work? Open relationship. You find out one of your partners is cheating and the bigger problem, lying. How do you deal with that? Is it something you discuss with one of your other partners or your significant other?
In my experience, Adam, I've always discussed everything with Sunny. I mean, that's like, it doesn't matter whether it's like I have diarrhea that day or whether it's I'm being cheated on in a poly relationship, I'm going to talk to her about it. Like she's my emotional support human. We live in the same house together. We love together. We work together. We do everything together. Right. She's my best friend. And, you know, it's something that I would definitely bounce off from her, but like, that's our relationship style.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that that's always great because in some situations or with people who are using that kind of relationship irresponsibly or maybe for their own gain, that could be a bad thing if like, you know, one partner hurts you and then you go to your other partner to bitch about it or to get advice. It can create some fucked up shit between y'all, you know? So would I say that's always a great thing? No, I think it just depends on the people. It depends on the situation. Like I try to be emotionally fair. Like if someone is bouncing something off of me in confidence, I do my best to not let that cloud my relationship with that third person. Like I really make an effort to recognize like that could turn into some toxic shit real fast. And I need to be responsible emotionally. And I don't know. And I'm not saying like, I'm so great because I'm not perfect. But a lot of people, I don't think about that. And then it just becomes like two people are ganging up on one. Was that triangulation where two people are ganging up on the other person? And that's not healthy. So, you know, a lot of people are like, give me a roadmap for being polyamorous or for having an open relationship. And there really is no roadmap. No. I have like, there's a couple of books. It's
different for me for partner to partner. Right? Like I don't think I've ever had two partners that I have ever had the same.
Dr. Liz Powell.
Oh, Dr. Liz's book is amazing.
Building Open Relationships. Also, Tongue-Tied, Untangling Communication, Sex, Kink, and Relationships by Stella Harris.
Stella's amazing.
Both great books. Another book, Opening Up by Tristan Taormino. What is another classic?
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
What am I thinking of? Jana Hardy, Ethical Slut. That's a classic. You know, some of those books. These are the two that I've been really geeking out on lately. And they're
These
great
are much better than any of the other ones she mentioned.
Yeah. And you know, the other ones are a bit outdated where these are relatively new. But it's like all of these different resources.
You see Dustin just came in and Ethical Slut and ran away.
Yes, yes.
Nisha.
Hi, Nisha. All of these resources help give you like different things to put in your open relationship portfolio, but you need to be able to pick and choose and go, oh, this inspires me. Oh, this little piece is good for me. Like you need to make your own. It's like these are presenting you with the grocery store. Like, here is all the food in the world. You need to pick the ingredients that you want for your particular recipe. And nobody can tell you whether you like Italian food or whether you want surf and turf. Like, that's only something you and your partners can determine. That was a weird metaphor, but I hope it made sense. Hi, Nisha.
Hey. I just wanted to add, for those that are like new to an open relationship or are curious about it, there's a really good website. wearecuriousfoxes.com. There's a good assessment to see if your relationship is like right for it. It's run by, I can't remember the name of the therapist, but she does one-on-one or relationship coaching for poly.
Cool.
And she also has a huge community, and it's a little bit different than what you would find in your like local community, because it's virtual, cool. So it's nice, and it's from more of a healing perspective and a kind of build your own structure, so to speak. So yeah.
Ooh, thank you. And I've heard of it, but I'm not super familiar. So I think afterwards I'm gonna go and I'm gonna check it out a little bit more. And it's like, I hear a lot of people when they're first opening their relationship, it's like they slowly peel off the Band-Aid or peel back the onion or whatever metaphor you want to use, where it's like, it's fine if you sleep with somebody else, but, you can do oral sex, but not penetration. Or you can fuck them, but don't kiss them on the mouth.
Right.
Or you can fuck them, but don't get emotionally involved. There's all these like conditions that you put on. And I will tell people, like, really step back and think about what you're doing, because what you're doing, it's like, there is a piece of you that is not ready for this. There is a piece of you that is fucking terrified. There is a piece of you that thinks that person is going to be better than me, and my person is going to leave me for that person. And if you still have that hanging over your head to that extent where you have to put conditions of like, don't kiss them, or you got some self-work to, like, are you really ready for this?
I think conditions
can be really good
clues. I think those conditions can be really good clues for the person to work on by themselves. Your conditions are not necessarily your partner's problem to handle, but a good supportive partner should be, trying to lift you up. But I think that all those, because I've been in a poly relationship that was so unhealthy. I mean, I'm really glad. It was such a train wreck in every way. And I had conditions.
Yeah.
Because I actually didn't want to be in it at all. Because it was just a guise for an abusive relationship. And now having been in really positive ones since, the contrast is evident. But, all of the things that I was insecure about pointed to things in my life that I could easily fix on my own. So.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah. And, a lot of people think that, like, oh, in order to be polyamorous, you have to be so emotionally aware that, like, there's that false notion that poly people are more evolved emotionally. Bullshit. And it really can be a platform or a guise for abuse.
Yes.
I mean, people think like, oh, they're not abusive because they communicate so much about, but hell no.
They're still human beings, and human beings are fucking evil.
Yeah.
I hate the living.
Yeah. And I know, like, and I don't know this much about it, so go do your own research. But like, there is another classic book about polyamory, More Than Two. And, a lot of people say it's a great book, and yeah, it is. However, it is, and this is very public. You can go Google it. Recently, the author has been accused, and I think admitted to, again, I haven't followed the details, of being abusive to their poly partners, and like some really bad shit went down. But there's this great book that came out of it where if you were to look at just that text, you would think like, these are some together ass people writing it. And underneath, it was a horrible, abusive mess.
There are many people, artists, situations where we have to separate the art from the artist and the writing from the human being that wrote the book.
Yeah.
I think we're at that point where we have to do that. because it's becoming more and more apparent how much inequities are around, and like people are just beginning to react to this, I think, in a very major way, which is why we're seeing a lot of the protests that we're seeing all over the United States right now. By the way, how are things in Chicago? How are things back home, Misha?
They're, it's there's obviously a lot of people feel divided about what just happened, and I have friends, who are out of work again, and then, there's I'm always in a really interesting place as like a white passing person of color, and I've just been kind of I feel like I trained for the discourse that's going on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I'm like real ready. I've got my I've learned to educate people non-offensively, and I'm glad that that's something that I've been working on this whole time. So yeah. Chicago is Chicago.
Oh yeah. Now I'm looking here at the comments, and there's a comment about a primary. Then there is who is primary. Is someone a primary, a partner that you confide in? Do you silo them? So it was like talking about a primary partner, and we were talking about if one partner is doing fucked up shit. So I want to talk about primary partners and hierarchies in polyamory, because there's a lot of, like Ken and I are married. So, yes, we're primary partners with each other. But with that comes a lot of couple privilege. There comes a lot of, it's like the recipe to abuse, disregard the feelings of, etc., another person. One prime example is unicorn hunting. You will see, if you've been on any dating sites, like when I'm on a dating site, I have my profile as not a single, but a married individual woman. I don't have like a couple profile.
Right, there's no reason to.
And I will get approached either by someone who appears to be a person by themselves, or sometimes a couple, like, we're looking for a third. We're looking for a third. And you'll see a lot of like, they are the primary couple and everything is about them and their feelings. And the third is like a toy. And they call that unicorn hunting, finding that, and usually it's almost always a hetero couple looking for a woman, and oftentimes there's a lot of conditions put on like what partners can and can't do with that woman. And oftentimes you'll even see like, we want a relationship. We want this woman to move in with us. But she sleeps in the spare bedroom. She doesn't get any decisions about the household. It's us. We are the primary. And like, oh, they're our human toy. That's not cool. And like,
what's interesting? My last relationship, the last marriage I had, the issue was not that I was the unicorn hunter. My wife was the unicorn hunter, and she only wanted to be able to be polyamorous when she could be with another woman that she would go out and hunt for the both of us.
Huh.
And that's very rare. Usually it's the guy that's the instigator.
Right.
In a lot of that. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I've seen women be the instigator.
I was. I mean, I recovered. I did engage in some unicorn. I'm willing to admit this entirely, and it was a control thing, and it was because a lot of things. We had this like perfect poly shell where we presented ourselves very well to people, and then there was a lot of fucked up shit happening behind the scenes, and It's interesting also because sometimes a guy will be comfortable with you having, a female partner, but then let's say you want to introduce a male or maybe just see him on the side. That's suddenly not okay. But yeah,
the well-known one dick policy. Yes.
The one dick policy. And it's interesting. The only like really positive, successful poly relationship that I like still am kind of in a little bit. There's no hierarchy whatsoever, and there never was. Yeah. And it really eliminates the possibility for jealousy, because the thing is it's impossible to like two people exactly the same amount. Like you're putting a unicorn in a failure situation. They're going to mess up. Right. You're going to get angry at them, and then you're going to discard them like they're not part of this. And yeah.
It's interesting because when you said that, oh, it's the guy. No, I've seen it's the woman, and exactly, it's like a hetero couple approaching me. The woman is the one who is the instigator, the one that puts the interest out there. The woman is the one who negotiates everything. And this is oftentimes seen too in swinger communities. They always say, like, you know, it's hetero couples, it's always the woman. But my first threesome was like this. I realized it was a mechanism of control because there was jealousy on the part of the woman in the relationship. So she could control which woman is being picked. We had hours of phone conversations, like, to get to know each other. Like, she really had to suss me out to be like, okay, you're okay to have a threesome with us. But even in the threesome situation, she was just like, I want that pussy, which I was fine with because I was more interested in her than I was in him anyway. So it worked out. But yeah, I see a lot. It's the woman is the one who is putting their hooks out there because it's a control thing. Or because there's insecurity in the relationship.
I've seen like the male be pushing undercover, and then the woman, to make him happy, goes out and does this and thinks, well, if I pick, you know, for my partner, then maybe I'll be okay with this, even though I'm not actually okay at all. And there's a hell of a lot we have to fix before I will be okay. It took me a long time to realize that the reason I kept picking and then freaking out, you know, a couple months later with someone was because I never wanted to do it in the first place. So you have to ask yourself the question, am I abandoning myself by making these decisions? You know, is this really the thing that's authentic to me? Because if you abandon yourself for your partner in any way, it's not going to work out. The relationship will not work out. Yeah.
Hell yes. You know, and you had said, like, the most successful one that you've been in thus far is where there was no hierarchy in the relationship. And that's really where I see a lot of people moving. I don't know if they're all doing it successfully, but like, there is the term relationship anarchy. And I'm going to just do the very quick explanation. It's basically that there are no kind of pre-assumed conditions upon your relationship. You know, things that with society, it tells you this is supposed to be this way. Like, you reject all of that. I'm ignoring you because I'm being serious right now. Sorry. You reject all of that and you make your own things. And you not only include your romantic relationships in there, you include your friendships, everything. Like, you know, one of the things society tells us is you have a best friend, like, you know, your best friend that you went to high school with, you do everything with. And the minute one of you gets a romantic partner, well, it's only natural that the romantic relationship takes precedence and the friendship takes a back seat, because romantic relationships have more value than friendships. And like, relationship anarchy rejects that and says, like, no, you know, all relationships, you know, don't follow these supposed tos. They stand on their own, and different relationships are just as important as other relationships. I hope I did.
There are so many different types of love. There's so many different types of love that we don't talk about. You know, one that is really interesting to me is called, have you heard of altruist attraction?
No.
Okay. So I'm part of the aro community, like the aromantic community, and we sometimes talk about having squishes as opposed to crushes.
Oh, yeah.
When you meet someone that you just really just have to know, you know, I mean, I can picture this girl that I met, Amelia, that I'm still friends with, like in high school. And I just remember my first image of her. It's very romantic, but I was instantly attracted to her. I've never wanted to have sex with her. I've never wanted to date her, but it's this deep, deep, deep connection that's somewhere on the spectrum in between platonic and romantic. Because we're not just binary with our attraction to people, you know, it's 3-dimensional. So, yeah.
Oh, I like that. Because I've definitely met people like that where it's like, I need to know you, and there's an attraction, but it's not like I want to fuck you kind of attraction.
But it's big.
But it's not just like, oh yeah, that's a cool person. It's somewhere.
No, you know what though? It's like, so one of the things about having so much toxic masculinity is that holding hands with a male friend or having that kind of a relationship with a male friend can be almost emasculating. And what you're talking about is bromance, because that's what we call it. It's like Bryn. The moment I met Bryn, I knew that's a guy that I had to fucking hang out with. I had to know him.
You need to be my best friend! Like that kind of...
Well, I had a connection with him. Yeah. Like, it was just like partly geeky stuff, partly, you know, like our lifestyle stuff. Just like, he was a very forceful personality. He was like somebody I had to know.
Yeah.
You know, just like we had some kind of a moxie in common, and that's
right.
I mean, you saw that with us.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And obviously, it was never romantic between the two of us, but like, there's definitely, you know, like he was somebody that I just had to know we had a lot in common.
Yeah. Or like what do we call? Say your platonic life partner,
Right.
kind
Troy,
of.
like
Yeah.
Troy, like me and Troy.
Yeah.
He's my hetero-flexible life mate.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
why would you want to deny your partner the chance of getting that excited about someone else, you know? It's exciting when you see, like, I just saw the smile on Ken's face when he was talking about that friend. That's like a nice, you know, you want to see that. And so then bringing it back to opening up the relationship, I think a lot of times people try to force themselves into compersion. Like, I have to be experiencing pleasure while my partner experiences pleasure. Maybe you can just try to be compassionate about that and like want your partner to have all these different types of relationships, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And just for everyone listening along, if you don't know the word compersion, it's sort of the opposite of jealousy. It's when you see your partner with another partner, it makes you're happy for them that they're happy. And I oftentimes liken this to even like, because sometimes people have a hard time wrapping their brain around it. I liken this to even like, let's say your partner has a hobby that you don't understand. Let's say they love to play
Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, I understand that. But let's say they love to play like pool. Like they love pool. They're obsessed with pool. They love to play. And you're like, pool sucks. I suck at pool. I hate pool. But when you watch them play pool, even though you're like, I'm not involved in that, and that's not really my thing, look at the smile on their face when they play pool. Look at how happy they are when they like, you know, dunk the 9-ball or whatever. That's compersion. You're happy that they're happy.
Did you say dunk the 9-ball?
Whatever. I like 9-ball better than 8-ball.
The new way that we're playing, it's kind of like ultimate slaps where you just
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, it's like looking at them and being happy for them that they're really overjoyed by something that doesn't involve you at all. And maybe you don't understand.
Lynette is a great example because she loves watching me play video games, but she doesn't ever want to play video games. But she likes the expressions and the joy on my face when I do that.
Right.
Like, and it's, in fact, she says, oh my God, I finally get it, because I think she got, what is the thing that everybody's playing on the, is it
Animal Crossing?
Animal Crossing, yeah. So she's like, I think she got hooked on that.
Yeah.
And now she understands video games.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot with, you know, if you're starting to open up your relationship, it's fucking scary. And there's all of these, like, you know, now that we have the internet, like we were talking about when we came up in being open or poly, or at least knowing we had those leanings, there really wasn't much of an internet. And now it's like, you're almost inundated with too much. There is like, am I open? Is this polyfidelity? Is this a relationship anarchy?
Am I polysaturated?
Am I polysaturated? Like, there's all these terms and there's all these labels, and you're trying to figure out like, what am I? And really, and it can make you like, oh my God, there's so much to know that I don't know.
Really quick, I wanted to talk for 1 second. Rachel wants to know, this should be a 2-part show or a 2-hour show. I actually think that's a good idea. So guys, this is what we're going to do next week.
No, we have
don't just listen to me.
Okay.
Chill.
Okay.
I got this.
Okay.
I promise. Next week, we have 2 special guests that we're going to be doing, but the week after that,
we're booked. So the week after that,
So the week after that, we will do. Okay. That I didn't know.
Yes.
What's the week after?
Miss Justine.
Oh, Justine Cross. Okay, so 3 weeks. So that's good. No. So
we'll come back to polyamory.
So in 3 weeks we'll come back to polyamory.
I would love to hear from y'all, whether you are on Get Vocal right now, or you're on Periscope or Facebook or YouTube Live. Leave a comment, because I do go after the fact and check those comments. Leave a comment with some of the questions that you have. Some of the things you might want to hear us talk about again when it comes to polyamory and open relationships. So I think that would be awesome. And thank you, Rachel. Rachel's given us V coins. That's what I forgot to say in my ball watching.
Oh, V
people
coins. Can
give us V coins. And if you like what we do, you like all the free content that we give you, because it's not just this. It's not just the Monday episodes. We do, like, almost all of our content that we give everywhere is free. If you like what we do, join us on Patreon, which is patreon.com/American Sex. You get lots of perks and stuff too. So we'd love you to come over there. I know V Coins does sound kinky, Adam. Like V Coins. Anyway,
thank you, Nisha.
Thank you, Nisha. Yay. It's 9 o'clock. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to shut off the recording, which means all the simulcasts shut down. But the thing is, if you're on the Get Vocal platform, stay here because we're going to keep talking. We're going to have a little after party. So if you're on Periscope, Facebook Live, or YouTube Live, get your butts over here. Look at the link just above here. Click on that. Come to the after party, or go to bit.ly/SunnyGetVocal so we can keep the conversation going. And until next time.
And I got one thing to add real quick.
What?
And starting next week, I am going to be doing a lot more with my gaming. And if those of you who are interested in gaming stuff, join us on Twitch at Thunderpants RPG. That stands for Role Playing Games. And we're going to have actually family-friendly, sort of like D&D-like role-playing games where we just sit back, relax, and we have a good time and make it accessible and open for people that have never played or maybe didn't feel comfortable playing for whatever reason. So if you weren't represented at the gaming table, if you feel like this is something you wanted to try, but maybe the rules are too hard, we're going to make it so that everybody's going to feel comfortable doing that. And please join us. There's going to be a lot going on.
Cool. Yay. All right. Bye, simulcast folks. Come join us. All right, everyone here on Get Vocal, hang tight.